Hello, and welcome to another edition of Heavy Hands. I'm your host, Mr. Connor. With me, as always, Dr. Phil.
Yo.
And we have, it's a big card to talk to you about this week. UFC 323. As Phil was sort of identifying, as we were, deciding which of these fights we want to hit, there are quite a lot of bouts that seem they may be defined by a wrestler just absolutely smothering a more exciting type of fighter.
Mm-hmm.
There's maybe some one way or the other kind of matchups here. But it's still a good card, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty banging card, and it is largely dominated by smaller fighters. So
yeah,
even on the chance that it is a quote unquote boring series of performances where the wrestler wins, there's a level of difference between what a top control focused fight looks like in middleweight, as opposed to what we would be getting from, say, Pantoja or even Merab.
Very true. Yes.
But yeah, it is notable that there's a whole bunch of these where it's they're broadly in some variation of the of striker versus grappler. And I'm trying to remember, someone posted this on Twitter, and I think I did retweet it, and I don't actually know where it's gone. But I think that this current, they basically posted a bunch of stats from the last few years in the UFC, and the level of control time in 2025 in championship fights has been remarkably high.
Yeah.
We've had many title fights in which, and most notably in recent memory, Della Maddalena and Duplessis,
mm-hmm.
where the fight has been basically one guy is stuck on bottom forever and cannot get up. So it is certainly a possibility this time, in one way, shape, or form, that despite this being an objectively pretty great card, people are not going to leave that happy.
Yeah, which is that's a funny stat to consider, isn't it? When you put it alongside the, I think, indisputable fact that we're sort of in the Cretaceous extinction event era of the wrestling dominance in the UFC. At least, we've also seen stories this year, and the evidence bears it out, that MMA just isn't receiving the quantity of decorated wrestlers it used to.
Mm-hmm. I mean, certainly not from America.
Not from America. Yeah. Pretty much all the great Russian and Dagestani fighters have some kind of wrestling background. At least a majority of them do. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, it's like the last gasp. The end of the Cretaceous period. The dinosaurs were really cooking up some wild shit at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Huge theropods and I think, I was about to say Stegosaurus, and then I was like, wait, is Stegosaurus a Jurassic dinosaur? I can't remember. I think it might be a lot earlier than them, off the top of my head. I should know that, but I don't. Yeah. I can't remember if it's that one or Triceratops. Oh god, my dinosaur knowledge is being exposed.
We're not getting sidelined into a paleontology discussion. God, quick, go, faster, move on.
Well, anyway, it's UFC 323. And just to bring us onto the positive track, I want to underscore something you just said about it, Phil. There's not a single heavyweight on this entire card.
Yay!
How wonderful is that? Bantamweight, flyweight, bantamweight, light heavyweight. Okay, you got to have one. Lightweight, women's flyweight, lightweight. I mean, that alone tells me, as you said, that even fights dominated by wrestling will have some cool attacks, some cool changes of position, some cool takedowns. You know? We're not going to see any fucking Jailton Almeida fights.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the level of top control we're talking about, even if that is what ends up defining the card. And it seems a very high chance that it will end up defining at least the main event. Which, look, I've got no problem with it. What else do you do with the man? Hard to complain about a booking like this in such an era of championship dominance. But it is Merab Dvalishvili versus Petr Yan 2 in the main event. Remember their last fight?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't close.
Yep.
I wouldn't say it was boring, but I also wonder if just seeing it again might be. Because I think it's one of those fights where a massive part of the appeal was, how the fuck is he doing this to Petr Yan? How is he making this look so easy?
Yeah.
Now we know. In fact, we have seen Merab Dvalishvili put on a very similar kind of performance against a whole slew of elite fighters. I think we have also seen in the interim what I can only explain as a loss of confidence from Petr Yan. You know, this is the thing that struck me rewatching this fight most recently, is that, like, it's not like it's a atypical bad performance from Petr Yan.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch his fights since, it's not like he doesn't look like Petr Yan. Like, all the skills are still there. You know, the incredible, like, diversity of offensive tools, the shot selection, the defense and the counters, it's all still there. I think what was robbed from Petr Yan in this fight was that thing that we used to get a lot of flack for constantly highlighting, which was his willingness and ability to turn fights around or to completely gain control of fights with just like wild, reckless gambles.
Yeah.
That used to be a hallmark of Petr Yan's style. He's this precise, considered, technical fighter who will also simply swing for the fences the moment he sniffs out some kind of weakness. You know, your feet are out of position, you got driven back towards the fence, you're biting really hard in a feint, whatever. He used to just go for it, throw himself past his feet, and go for the kill. And it was often like, it often resulted in a decisive fight-turning moment. That, I think, is at least part of what's kind of no longer there for Petr Yan. He just seems like exactly the same guy, but less confident, less willing to be reckless. And, you know, that recklessness did get him in trouble with Merab. But is the absence of it going to help him is an entirely different question.
Yeah, it is very difficult to find a route forward for Yan here, which is shocking, really, because you know, before this fight, you and me were like both relatively confident in Yan as, you know, one of the best possible matchups you could get.
Yeah,
for against Merab, as for that matter, we were with Umar.
Yeah,
which just goes to show you quite how superhuman Merab is.
Yeah,
because if you watched the Aldo fight, you'd be like, sure, you just need someone who can, you know, fight and contest takedowns, you know, on a sort of vaguely Aldo level, but you just need someone who can keep the pace up. What about Petr Yan? You know, works the body, keeps the pace. And he absolutely couldn't do it whatsoever. And then you're like, okay, what about Umar? He can also keep an incredible pace, but he's going to actively control his own range. He's not going to get stuck into clinch exchanges. And again, better than Yan, but still couldn't keep up.
Yep.
And so, I think there's too many elements here which make it possible for me to think that Jan is going to win. It doesn't mean I think it's impossible that he's going to win, but that's not the same thing.
Yeah.
I can't. There's no way I could sign off on thinking Piotr Jan is going to win this fight at this point. And yeah, I think just like a bunch of reasons. Like you said, he's not like, he doesn't seem to have those fight-changing moments in him anymore. I mean, the other thing about the Dvalishvili fight is that Jan is, I think, is still a thinking fighter, which has, made him such an incredible action fighter and made him able to find those adjustments against, Aldo and Sandhagen and Rivera. And he's been able to find answers in fights where he's been having issues. But I think, like many fighters, he needs room to think. He needs time to figure out what he needs to do in a fight.
Certainly.
And at many, many points in this fight, Dvalishvili was simply not doing that. Like most of the entire second round. And it's not even just the idea that he's just completely spamming takedowns. There are many points where Merab is just like chasing him around the cage, pinning him up against it, and Jan is not throwing back, with strikes. He's just he is just being frozen into inactivity. And this is something that, people were able to do to Robbie Lawler. Like, for example, who is also a thinking fighter, is that you can get him, stuck in having to solve a problem and then just spam him with offense, for minutes on end whilst he was just sort of backing up, not doing much. And, that's essentially how Aljo was able to win, multiple rounds over the course of their 2-fight series.
Yep.
By simply causing him to shell up and just throwing diversity and throwing like diversity and volume at him.
Yeah.
And making him think.
Basically, Aljo did to him what, Ian Gary did to Carlos Prates, plus wrestling. With varying degrees of success, but even in their first fight, it was actually working really, really well in the early stages when, throughout his career, Jan has needed the most time to kind of figure out what he's trying to do.
Yeah. And this is one of the terrifying things about Merab, is that he is not simply like physically inexhaustible, but seems like borderline mentally inexhaustible as well. He does not get bored. He will, occasionally take time off. I think he's not actually inhuman. He will famously have a few rounds where he'll just stop doing things for a little while and let himself
faff around on the back foot.
Yeah. But most of the time, he can just spam option A, option B, option C. He's always feinting.
Yep.
He's either throwing takedowns or doing strikes. He's always doing something.
Yeah.
And I think he's just immensely overloading to fight against.
He's a doer. I think that's the ultimate distinction in this matchup, as it is in so many of Merab's matchups. But it's doer versus thinker. And frankly, I think that Merab has only become more potent as a doer because he has just kind of been, I'm not even sure he's really technically advanced all that much as a striker. But
probably not.
He's gained more of what like Piotr Jan used to have. That defining quality I talked about at the top. That like he's just going to go at you with all of his weapons and combine everything more aggressively than he used to be able to. Be more secure in just gaining some kind of initiative, which by then just continuing to do these few basic switch-ups, really, he will just keep you forever reactive, forever on the back foot.
Yeah.
I
also think like it's another one of these fights where there's just like a a core difference between between someone who does MMA because they want to be good at it,
Yeah.
and someone who does MMA because they want to win.
Mm.
Like, I think there's a lot of fighters where they take genuine pleasure from being able to execute well.
Yes.
For being, they're like, I am figuring things out. I have found out how to beat someone. I have thrown good strikes. I have good form on my takedowns. They take pleasure from being good at the sport, and competing is the purest way to show that
Right.
you are good at the sport. And there are other people who like winning. They like winning. They just want to win at the end of the day. They want something which, has a little mark against their name which says they came out on top.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like Piotr Jan, for all his, as a sort of both result and cause of his incredible depth of skill, is that he's someone who really likes MMA and he likes being good at it. And Merab Dvalishvili likes winning.
Yeah.
And he will do whatever he can to win. And I don't think he gets tired, and I don't think he needs to think that much about what looks good, or gets concerned with how he's looking. I mean, he is in a... I saw a thing, I think it was on Reddit the other day, where people were talking about, people say Islam is boring, but he hasn't finished. He's finished like 8 of his last 10 fights, whereas Merab, barely finishes anyone. And, Merab has certainly like a fair bit of the old, albeit to a massively greater extent, the old like Clay Guida thing.
Yeah.
Where Clay was able to, jump around and look like a wild caveman and, be incredibly high energy and charismatic, and sort of distract from the fact that he wasn't actually often doing that much offensively. Yep. But yeah, Merab can, as proved in stuff like the Umar fight, can win what would otherwise be like close decisions through just like charisma and activity and the fact that he's confident and happy that he's ahead.
Confident, and
the vibes are there for him.
Confident and doesn't overthink. Like Merab is, I think, more so than any other fighter, immune to outsmarting himself.
Mm-hmm. No. I think because he isn't, because we know that he does his things where he'll as we said, have full rounds of striking.
Yeah. But unless that ends disastrously, even if things do start to go wrong, the muscle memory will just kick in, and he'll just go back to doing Merab stuff. This is why I say
the advantage of being being someone who wants to win as opposed to someone who wants to be good.
Right.
Is that you will not
he'll never get attached to a bad idea.
Yeah, exactly. It will simply immediately go back to hitting takedowns. And yeah, it's one of those things where there's obviously routes to victory, tactical pathways for Jan, low kicks, body work, just fighting the body lock at all possible times.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure that as you said, in all the fights we've seen since Piotr Jan's lost to, since that sort of dispiriting streak around Merab and Aljo and O'Malley, he looked like Piotr Jan.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, he looked like Piotr Jan. He didn't look any different either.
Yeah.
There was, it wasn't like there was any, you weren't seeing him break out a new style. All of these fights mostly came down to him, doing what he always has, which is kind of meeting people head on and then cracking them through his mental durability and technical superiority in the pocket. It wasn't him like showing that he's just going to be that. It wasn't him showing that he's like been building a comprehensive anti-Merab game by like breaking clinches,
No.
and shucking off takedowns and any of this kind of stuff, and having a range game. It looked just like Petr Yan, and like balanced against that is the idea that like I've seen what Yan and this camp in particular look like in rematches, as in Sarah Longo and Dvalishvili, and have rematched Yan before, and he did not look better the second time.
No.
He did not look like he had, because the
Merab,
meanwhile, did not have a particularly different game plan in the second fight. He just managed his energy output better.
Yeah.
And in fact, had even more success with the wrestling in his second fight against Yan.
Yep.
And in fact, both Aljo and Merab had like quite similar game plans against Yan, which is just, spam stuff against him until he backs up and then grab him and take him down.
Right.
It's just that doing that knackered Sterling, and Merab was able to do it completely happily for, 25 minutes and look fine at the end.
Right. But yeah, that really puts a point on it, right? Like, Aljamain Sterling was able to win with Merab Dvalishvili's game plan.
Mm-hmm.
He's not Merab Dvalishvili. Like, it's just a totally different beast when it's actually the guy doing it. Yeah, that's the thing I was trying to get at with Petr Yan. Like, there's no question he's a different fighter. Just feels different watching him than it did when he was on his way to the title. I don't think any of those differences are actually positive.
No.
And by that, I don't just mean that, like, he's gotten worse. What I mean is, like, as you said, there have been no additions. There's nothing that looks wholly different, or like Petr Yan has expanded his toolkit or adapted his style in any way. On top of which, the only real change I can identify is, that he's maybe become even more thoughtful. Like, it takes more convincing of himself to go out there and get the win. Those early stages where he used to feel people out seem to have routinely become like a round and a half minimum in these 3 fights since he fought Merab.
Yep.
And meanwhile, Merab has just gotten more confident in being able to go out there and do stuff without any fear of the consequences, without any, any surplus of like creativity. Merab doesn't seem to have like favorite things as a fighter. That's that like winning rather than fighting as a craft thing you were talking about. Like, he doesn't get attached to bad ideas. He also doesn't get attached to good ideas. Like, he will simply just put things together.
Yep.
And
it's simply an unending barrage of stuff.
Yeah. Stuff which connects very well and is driven by the best engine in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is a lot of words to say that, like, it seems the likeliest outcome is that it's like just a slightly more exaggerated shit kicking than last time.
It's not even the idea that Merab, spammed tons of takedowns and Yan, got tired and eventually got out wrestled. Like, Yan was never really getting badly out wrestled in the fight,
right?
But he just got like comprehensively outstruck,
yeah,
because he was constantly guessing. Like, badly outstruck.
Yep.
Because he just had to be thinking about the takedowns the entire time, and he just couldn't get into a groove at all. I mean, yeah, it's just, it's very hard to find, again, tactical solutions, fine, try and work him over with low kicks, definitely go to his body a lot, as much as you possibly can.
Yep.
So you can, both, he's shown some vulnerabilities there, and you can strip the and you will have your arms in position to be able to fight the body lock. Like tactical stuff, sure, but like it's just the fact that he can fight at that incredible, mind-numbing, like mental as well as physical pace.
Right.
He's not monotonically just doing something that you can pick up on and beat him for.
Right.
He is endlessly cycling, and it just looks like a terrible, terrible matchup for Petr Yan.
Right.
Who has shown, again, no capacity to adapt to it. I was thinking of the Magomedov rematches, but even then, that is mostly Petr Yan adapting from a close previous fight to simply beat Magomedov's ass, rather than disarming him in any like meaningful way. He simply meets him head on and kicks the shit out of him.
I think that is sort of what you have to do to Merab. Like, there's the little tactical things you mentioned. I mean, really, like, if I'm Petr Yan's corner, I'm telling him that we're going, like, exclusively to the body, almost.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing everything possible to sap this man's energy, and to get in the way of his level changes. But I mean, I think if you're going to beat Merab, like, you have to attack him, and you have to attack him relentlessly, because initiative is the name of the game for fighting in general, but for Merab's style. Like, once you start reacting and trying to anticipate things, the switch-ups are just going to kill you, because he can just keep rinsing and repeating over and over again. You have to gain control of the fight. You have to be the one going forward. You have to be the one gaining space. And you have to be like preemptively punishing him. There's just no good way to think defensively, to shore yourself up against Merab's game. He will find a crack.
Yeah, but again, it's
very difficult to do.
Is this something that Petr Yan has? Does he have, for example, that controlling jab from both stances that was such a clear thing that Umar could use to control Merab? He does not. In fact, he often has like a weakness at that range that you've identified, which is his long guard, which gets people like hand fight in on him. I mean, it's just very hard to find a realistic route forward for Petr here that I
pretty much
be even convinced that I could believe that he would even be able to pull off. There's always the maybe Merab will simply physically disintegrate one day question. But I can't imagine he would be taking fights at this frequency if that was happening.
Yep. He seems to just be making the most of his physical prime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I suppose there's maybe Yan catches him with a big shot,
But as you pointed out, he kind of does that less now.
Yeah. Yep. And less in the aggressive in the aggressive context. I think he would really need to make that anything close to a reliable path to victory.
Yeah, and that is also the last like damning piece that I guess we haven't necessarily talked about that much, is that in all those fights where he was sort of in a hole of one description or another, like the second Sterling fight, the first Sterling fight, actually, for that matter, and Sean O'Malley, his solution in all of those fights was to start out wrestling his opponent.
Yeah, totally.
He just cannot stay away from a physical, high-out fight. It's just not who he is.
Yeah.
The
wrestling was there, as you said. It was actually for its part an effective component of Jan's game against Merab. Like, he didn't get horribly out wrestled really the whole time. In fact, there are a lot of times where Merab went for like some goofy fucking hip toss or something, and Jan was able to defend it and get on top of him, but the fight just keeps going. And Merab just fights back to his feet, and then he might do the same stupid thing again, and it might get defended again. But it's an unfair distribution of cost in these exchanges. That is the fundamental nature of Merab. He just doesn't have to worry about what it costs him to go for stuff. And that is basically all Merab's opponents have to worry about. It's a horrible, horrible problem to be in fighting him. Like, what's it going to cost me if I go for this? It's just the first step on a one-way path to humiliation and destruction. You just can't think. You just can't outthink him. Like, he's hardly thinking at all. He's a machine.
Yep. I think that like the Sandhagen fight was one where I was like, I think Corey Sandhagen can make a good fight of this. I think he's a reasonably, like, in terms of how he can fight and how he changes his approach and, his size and various other things. I think stylistically he is a fine matchup for Merab, but I cannot pick him to win because he's simply physically outclassed. And this fight, and again, like, it's, shows how wrong we were. In the first fight between Jan and Merab, is that fight basically just convinced me that, I went in thinking, well, Jan is he's just the better all-round fighter, and I came out of it thinking, that looks like it's just an unwinnable style matchup for you.
Yep. Yeah, Corey Sandhagen did give Jan a good fight. If anything, he was like perhaps the best defensive performance we've ever seen against Merab, other than I suppose maybe Jose Aldo. But he basically paid the same, it's a different version of the same price that Aldo paid, which is he couldn't actually, therefore, having defended everything so well, he couldn't go out there and then win the fight. Like, if you expend all of your mental and physical energy not letting Merab win, he'll just beat you in the other area that you're not really thinking about anymore. It was still a fight where Sandhagen could not convince himself to go forward and build any kind of attack, no matter how much Trevor Whitman pleaded him to. Because how do you against Merab? How do you think offensively against him? It's such a mental blockade that he creates in your mind.
Yeah, he's constantly feinting. He's constantly doing things. You never know when it's time to attack.
And you have to know that every time you attack, it might be another one of those fucking exhausting wrestling exchanges. I did well in the last one. What about the next one? You have to think about it all the time.
Yep.
Horrible.
Yeah.
So, this is all just a very long-winded way of saying we're expecting the same fight we got from these guys last time.
Pretty much. I think actually, sort of like last time, the actual damage is simply going to be Piotr Jan getting outstruck again. Yeah.
Possibly worse than last time, because he's not technically progressed that much, but he's gotten a lot more confident. And that's really all you need when you have the opponent completely fixated on the threat of your wrestling. You just have to go for the shots. Just get the shots in.
Yep.
So?
Yeah, and I think, Piotr Jan, high guard, blah, 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 just, Merab can just constantly bring the hands up and then shoot underneath them, rinse and repeat, just too much.
Yep. He will be shooting under that long guard, I'll tell you that for free. Okay. Well, that's the main event of UFC 323. Let's take a quick break. When we return, Alexandre Pantoja versus Joshua Van for the flyweight title is the co-main event. We'll talk about that after this.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to this week's Heavy Hands. If you like what you hear, please consider pledging to support the podcast on Patreon. Patreon is basically continuous crowdfunding. You sign up to contribute a certain amount per month to help us with production costs and the like, and in return you get rewards ranging from a mention on the Heavy Hands website to a question or topic of your choice being discussed on the show. We have a lot more in the works to reward you for your help, and we appreciate every contribution. No amount is too small. Just head over to patreon.com and find how you can help out, the only show dedicated to the finer points of face punching. Now let's get back to it.
Welcome back to Heavy Hands. Let's talk about our co-main event. Alexandre Pantoja defending against Joshua Van. I can't help the feeling, Phil, that we are rushing Joshua Van into this title shot. On the other hand, who else is there? And he has already shown, unlike his rushed predecessor, Steve Erceg, he has already shown an ability to bounce back very well from a really hard loss.
Mm-hmm.
This will not be, if he loses, the same kind of watershed moment in his career that it turned out to be for Steve Erceg, who, let's not forget, actually did damn near beat Pantoja in that fight. It's almost miraculous how much he kind of fell apart afterwards, not having not reached that zenith, given how incredible that performance was. Pantoja is not Merab Dvalishvili. He's more dangerous when he gets to his positions. But he does not, and he's got a desire to win, much like Merab, which kind of makes up for the fact that he definitely does not have Merab's cardio. It's actually funny that like Pantoja is like the only flyweight in the UFC that I think you could point to as a guy who routinely gasses.
Yep.
But he's a champion for a reason. He fights extremely well tired. But yeah, all this is to say, like, there's a chance Joshua Van wins this fight. No question.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things, so I've come at this from like a weird angle in terms of my sort of relationship to this fight. Because on the one hand, it's been nice to see that actually, finally, like Pantoja is getting some respect.
Yes.
Like,
which does mean, by the way, he's just about to go down in flames.
Yeah, of course. Naturally.
That's when that happens in a fighter's career.
Because, I mean, you know, it's always helped by you thrashing someone.
Totally.
Like, someone who has had, like, a bunch of, you know, closely contested fights that are, you know, that people can get annoyed by because they feel like they're, you know, they're too competitive. This isn't how a champion fights. You know, as you said, it's a lot of him just gutting wins out over guys by simply willing himself to the finish.
Yep.
And then he's had some, he's you know, he's thrashed some people. You know, Sterling did it with like the crippled remnants of T.J. Dillashaw. Benson Henderson, you know, after his run of close decisions, like mopped the floor with Nate Diaz. So him being able to just like crush Kai Asakura and Kai Kara France has meant that, as well as, you know, just the sheer sustained success that he's had, has meant that suddenly, like, people are like, oh yeah, this really is probably, at this point, like, the second best flyweight we've ever seen.
Yep.
And Yeah, so it has been genuinely like heartening to see people just being like, to see how confident people are in Pantoja.
Yeah.
Just being like, no, of course he's got this. This kid isn't ready for the level that Pantoja brings. And it's been genuinely nice to see, because people have no longer been just like, like he's some placeholder that's been put there because Figueiredo's gone and DJ's gone, and he's just the guy that's
Right.
that happened to be there once they left. Absolutely not. But yeah, as I said, I have come at it from a weird place, because that Royval fight with Joshua Van,
Mm-hmm.
it was one of those ones where I said, this is such a challenging matchup for Van, based on where he is and should be at this point in his career, what we've seen from him in the past, the fact that he's going to have to just have a fight against an inexhaustible immortal,
Mm-hmm.
In some less potent version of the Marab vein, someone who will simply throw stuff at you forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically said, at this point, it is such a challenging fight for someone who is 23 years old and at that point in their career, that if he wins it, I will pick him out of hand in a title shot. And so that's what I'm going to do.
Wow, you've maintained that feeling, huh?
Yeah.
Sticking to your guns.
Basically. Like, it's just one of those things, like, occasionally if you see someone like who is growing at the rate that they can, win what you would consider to be, borderline unwinnable matchups, I think I will always just be like, oh, that is championship quality right there.
Yeah.
It is true championship quality. Fights like Max Holloway, Dennis Bermudez, where it was Max Holloway was suddenly just like, no, I don't want to get out wrestled. I don't think I should be out wrestled anymore, and he just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Luke Rockhold, Jacare, there's no reason for Luke Rockhold to be able to win that fight at that stage in his career. You can just see these guys, and you're just like, yeah, you are on your way to the top.
Yeah.
And yeah, honestly feel like that is kind of enough for me. Obviously Royval and Pantoja are completely opposite in terms of not necessarily in terms of directionality or things like that, but in terms of what kind of fighters they are.
Totally.
One of them's a sort of, incredibly high-paced, pitter-patter volume guy who's very long and tall, and the other's a bricked-up, bomb-throwing wrestler. But I think one of the core elements is and which contributed weirdly enough to what people consider to be unsatisfying fights, which is weird, but is that element of indefatigability that they both share.
Yeah.
You cannot deter either Pantoja or Brandon Royval by any, normal means.
Right.
They are simply almost immortal to strikes, have, if not infinite gas tanks, then just, in Pantoja's case, infinite will to win. You are just going to have to be there forever. But Van has shown that at a very basic level, he can navigate this as a problem. He can simply put out more clean offense than his opponent, who is trying to simply drown him.
Right.
For a full 5 rounds.
Yeah.
And again, that is remarkably rare for a 23-year-old.
And not just outlast or keep pace with, but continue making adjustments deep into a crazy frenetic fight. I mean, that's the really impressive thing about Royval Van is how close that fight was until it wasn't anymore.
Yeah.
final 2 or 3 minutes, suddenly Joshua Van is just taking Brandon Royval apart at the end of an absolutely insane war. He is suddenly just landing everything cleanly, has his timing down. He's crushing him with those stomp kicks to the knee. Like, he's just cooking up new ways to destroy him at the very end. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with all of that. I mean, obviously the one major difference is that aspect of Pantoja's style, which kind of no one else in the division has at this point. Which is the brutally dangerous grappling game.
Yep.
Like, I'd be pretty confident to say, well, first of all, this is not something we have seen Van pitted against very often. He's not fought a lot of wrestlers.
Oh.
Cody Durden and Ray Tsuruya. And Tsuruya actually got him down quite a bit in their fight. I mean, he really stuck to him with the wrestling. I would say, based on that Tsuruya fight in particular, I have full confidence in Van's ability to defend, escape, scramble out of takedowns, while also keeping his game flowing. That's been proved to me. Do any of these guys actually represent the fight-ending threat that Pantoja does when he gets you to the ground? Like, neither of these dudes are just teleporting to back mount, when you're defending the initial shot. And when they're getting there, they're locking you down in a body triangle and hammering you and just attacking the choke over and over again. That's the whole different thing that Pantoja brings to the table. That I'm not sure about.
Yeah. Yeah, that is essentially why I am simply taking the Van fight on faith at this point. I think Pantoja is probably more likely to be someone like Merab, who's he's more likely than Merab for his for his physical gifts that he leans on to suddenly wane at some point, partially because you can see them waning in his fights. You can see him. Yeah. You can see him actually genuinely getting tired. His chin still obviously remains one of the greatest we've ever seen.
Yep.
But honestly, the same is sort of true of Brandon Royval. But yeah, I think that is the problem with this. And I think why people are confident in Pantoja, and in many ways rightly so, is that we simply haven't seen Van against a lockdown positional grappling threat, and that was a big part of the dynamic that we had to consider with Della Maddalena against Islam, for example.
Yeah,
it's like JDM has fought wrestlers. He's fought people who have taken him down.
Yeah.
Has he fought people who are never going to let him get back up again?
Yeah. Or this was definitely a factor of the Islam equation as well, but is definitely one with Pantoja. Will you not get up again because he's put you to sleep?
Yeah.
Like, that's the other aspect of Like, how many submissions have we seen Joshua Van defend, genuinely?
Yeah.
According to UFC stats, the answer is 1. Now, they don't always collect all the things I would regard as submission attempts. It has to have a certain level of commitment and locked-inness, I think, to count for their metrics. But it was Edgar Chairez. And I don't recall right now. I'm going to guess he probably slapped a guillotine on Joshua Van at one point, because that dude loves the guillotine. But that's it. At least according to UFC stats. I can't recall any others, but just going off the numbers for fights I don't have as clear a memory of, there's 1.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing. It's the lockdown game, yes. But the actual ever-present danger of being on the ground.
Yeah.
And
also it's the misery of being on bottom against a truly powerful, controlling, and technical top player.
Certainly.
You don't know how he's going to react to that, because as we've seen in the past, some people just get broken by it.
Yeah. Remember the commentary during JDM Makhachev? There was a point in like round 4. They're like, why is JDM wincing right here? I was like, I think it's because he's being cross-faced and he knows there's no hope of escape. It's actually fucking miserable.
Yeah.
To have that happen
Joshua
to
Van may be someone who has, maybe, like many fighters, he may have limitless mental stamina.
Yeah.
In a stand-up fight, and he may get tired and pissed off and maybe even desperate if he's put on the bottom.
Yeah. Like I said, I consider what we saw from him in that fight with Ray Tsuruya, in which he genuinely had a lot of difficulty. I consider all of that positive.
Mm-hmm.
Because that could have easily been a fight. There's a time in there where he's stuck in like a scarf hold, just like both shoulders on the mat. Like, what a horrible, demoralizing position to be in. But he bides his time, bucks his hips, creates an escape. Like it's a fight where he shows he's not going to simply accept bad positions, but that can be self-destructive if the bad position just can't be gotten rid of very easily, Like, I refuse to accept this. Never say die. And then the guy's just sitting on you. It's like, It can actually be really deleterious to your mental well-being, I think.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the big unknown. I think I am going to pick Joshua Van as well. I do think he is a really, really special fighter. I think he can very much do his own version of what Steve Erceg did to Pantoja, which is to say, keep the pressure on him, hit his body, threaten him with uppercuts and knees to punish the level changes, keep him on the end of the jab, and counter him brutally when he goes for some of his big reckless swings.
Yes, and it must be said, Joshua Van is, even at this point in his career, and possibly because instead of despite him not being a giant for the division like Erceg is, he is much better on the back foot than Steve Erceg.
Absolutely, no question.
The idea that Erceg has been proven to have just a consistent problem of backing up with his chin in the air at this point.
Yeah.
And Van just doesn't have that. There will be no, people blitzing him as Pantoja did. And again, that was a career best performance from Erceg in terms of his back foot fighting, which then sort of disappeared after that. But it was still one of those cases where he could just jump in and Erceg would back up, and then he would be able to take him down or land strikes as Erceg moved backwards. Yeah. I suspect Van will simply be countering Pantoja a lot on those blitzes.
Yeah.
Everything will be costly.
And even with...
That was the story of that Royval fight, is that Van was perhaps the first person in the stand-up to make Royval's fighting style just too costly.
Yeah.
No one could make Royval spend enough durability on the feet until that point.
Right. And could essentially beat him at Royval's range too.
Yeah.
Counter him off the back foot, draw Royval in past his own effective range over and over. The guy just has a really keen grasp of distance and timing. And he's, in addition to being better off the back foot, he's also less likely to be put on the back foot. He's much better than Erceg at slipping and countering, standing his ground, and meeting an attack head on, but in a clever way.
Yeah. And, throwing in combination, if someone is scaring him off with, if someone is trying to scare him off with just, big swings, he will simply punch them 2 to 3 times in return.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that despite all the obvious X factors,
Yes.
and the huge experience gap, I just have to pick Joshua Van. As I said, he just looks like the coming man.
I think I have to agree.
The coming van, as the case may be.
The coming van, yes. Just to put a point on it, though, like, we're not saying Pantoja can't win this fight. Like, all that respect that Pantoja is finally getting is very much deserved, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He's got loads of the intangible qualities that make great fighters. In many areas of his game, he's got more intangibles than he does tangibles.
Yep.
But they drive the whole game. And we really, really don't know how Van will respond to a good performance from Alexandre Pantoja, where he is getting to his positions, where he is attacking submissions. We have no idea if Van's spirit can be broken in a fight where he just doesn't get to have any fun.
Mm-hmm.
And we also don't know if he can, stop a expertly applied rear naked choke.
Yep.
So we'll see, but we're both picking him. He just seems really good. I mean, what can you say?
Just it.
He just seems really good.
That boy just good.
All right. Well, let's take another break on that note. When we come back, I think we have selected Henry Cejudo versus Peyton Talbott as our fight to fixate on. We may hit a couple of others, maybe end up producing a short bonus episode for this card, but I think it's Cejudo versus Talbott at bantamweight after this.
Financial support is fantastic, but there are other, even easier ways to support Heavy Hands. Perhaps the best is by spreading the word. We know our fan base. You're all cool, popular people with serious social media presences. You're tastemakers and trendsetters. Okay, there are one or two of you that don't fit that description. You know who you are, but no matter what, you can always help us out by telling folks about the show. And you can also give us a positive rating and review on iTunes and Stitcher, things like that. We rely on word of mouth and positive feedback to grow and improve, so thank you very much for your time and your help. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Heavy Hands. Henry Cejudo and Peyton Talbott are fighting somewhere in the middle of this main card. Henry Cejudo is 400 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing we should lead with. He's, what is he actually? He's literally 38. Which for a bantamweight is getting up there.
Yep.
And, I think you can see from his results as well. I mean, granted, he's fought some of the best dudes in the world, but he is winless in his last 3 bouts, one way or the other. And I think a lot of those fights have shown the signs of age. Cejudo was always a guy who was extremely dependent on his physicality. You want to talk about like Pantoja's legendary chin. Cejudo's got a legendary chin of his own. He was blazingly fast. He had great conditioning, particularly in that little slice of his career when he was like taking it really, really seriously, which I think may also be a factor of what we've seen from him as he ages. Like, how could he possibly be taking it as seriously as he was after DJ beat him the first time? He just, like, why would he care as much as he used to?
Mm-hmm.
Nonetheless, I think he makes an interesting opponent for Peyton Talbott, who has only just sort of cleared the barrier that was put up for him in that fight with Raoni Barcelos. Barcelos absolutely wrestle-fucked Peyton Talbott, and did it brilliantly. Like, the setups were on point, the takedown finishes were on point. It was a fight in which we and Peyton Talbott himself discovered that he simply does not have the feel, the instincts, the technique past the first level of takedown defense. And then he came out against Felipe Lima, a very good fighter, And boy, was that part of his game shored up. I mean, that was a fantastic sign. He had just completely fixed his wrestling game. It was so clear that this like superior athlete had spent every day since the Hany Barcelos fight drilling takedown defense and scrambling. Probably he was like exhausted in the gym scrambling with a series of fresh wrestling opponents. Like, no comparison between what we saw there and the Barcelos fight. The trade-off is that his striking kind of sucked. Like, he actually kind of got outstruck by Felipe Lima. Not that Lima's a bad striker, but, like, Lima was visibly shook by Peyton Talbott in a way that I'm still surprised to see looking back at it. He was, I remember he went back to his corner. He was like, he hit so hard. Like, he was just not enjoying the fight with Peyton Talbott, and yet Talbott was getting next to nothing done on the feet. It was almost Lima's own insistence on continually attacking him with wrestling that allowed Talbott to run away with that fight.
Yep.
So that's kind of the progression of Peyton Talbott that I'm keeping an eye on as we now match him up with another wrestler, a much more experienced one, but also a much more shot one. Still, it's...
Okay, so first question.
Yeah, go on.
Is Henry Cejudo a wrestler?
He's trying to be.
Is he?
Yeah.
What are Henry Cejudo's stats? I mean, I genuinely don't know because I can't actually look at stats on my work computers. They are, for some reason, they've blocked Fight Metric because my work doesn't want me accessing. But like, so for example, his fight against Song Yadong.
Yeah.
I don't remember him throwing a takedown in that fight. I remember Song Yadong attempting more takedowns than Henry Cejudo in that fight.
Let's check the stats.
Didn't like go for them super hard, but he went for more takedowns than Henry did.
I don't think that's true, actually. No. Statistically, Henry Cejudo went for 3 takedowns to Song Yadong's 1. You know, he went out there and tried to pit his wrestling against Marab's in their fight. He basically went tit for tat for takedowns with Aljo. I mean, I think he's like more of a...
Is one takedown attempt per round on Song Yadong a good sign for Henry Cejudo?
No, it's not. It's not.
What about this, giant, power-punching, poised athlete with, like, who's like a head taller than you, like not a Henry Cejudo head, like a normal head taller than you. What about him says you should be going out and like trying one takedown per round against him?
Yeah, well, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to do more than that.
Yeah,
that's all I've got.
But yeah, so I mean, this is the thing: is that Henry is obviously like washed to at least some extent, and a big part of the sort of mystery of this fight is, how washed is he, and how much does this interact with what we should expect the fight to look like? Because obviously, Hany Barcelos is not exactly in the prime of his career.
I mean, yeah.
But he was still able to take Peyton Talbott down a whole bunch. And similarly, Felipe Lima is not an Olympian.
Mm-hmm.
And thus, being able to defend his takedowns is obviously a huge improvement, but it doesn't necessarily mean he could defend Henry Cejudo's. But then, again, I simply cannot at this point even trust Henry to consistently shoot.
I mean, I think he'll go for it. What else is he going to do?
What was he going to do against Song Yadong?
Yeah, I mean, fair enough.
I mean, we picked Song Yadong, but we were not like Oh yeah, Henry's just going to have a full-on kickboxing fight with him.
Yeah.
Just barely going to force the takedown at all. It would have been a lot easier to pick him in that case.
Yeah, that's true. Next time, Henry, just let us know. Yeah, I mean, the thing with Cejudo is, like, wrestling was never really the super dominant part of his MMA game. It was quite situational, you know, like, he went out there with Sergio Pettis, and he's like, well, this guy, like, why on earth would I strike with him? Also, I've seen him get stuck in guard for rounds at a time. That guy, you go out there and you just wrestle him, which is pretty much what he did.
Mm-hmm.
Had a nice, boring, controlled, dominant wrestling fight with Sergio Pettis. But Henry Cejudo, the MMA fighter, like, his style is striking.
Yeah.
And a couple different styles of striking over the years. Like, most recently, this sort of late-stage Patricio Pitbull karate guy approach. Almost less aggressive Kyoji Horiguchi approach to striking.
Yep. Figueiredo, etc.
So I think that may be part of it. Like, first of all, that's part of why I do expect Cejudo to go out here and wrestle. Like, yeah, should he have done it more against Song Yadong? Undeniably. But, like, how insane would you have to be to see Peyton Talbott's fight with Raoni Barcelos and not be like, well, there's one way to beat this dude?
Yep.
That's the only thing to do. So I do expect it to be a wrestling-heavy performance. It also makes you wonder, like, even in his prime, if he couldn't get to the kinds of positions that Barcelos is able to and shoot the number of takedowns that Barcelos was able to. Let me just double check the stats here. Raoni hit 8 takedowns in that fight on 15 attempts. Those are numbers Henry Cejudo has never come close to in any MMA fight.
I do feel like, I do feel like he could if he wasn't facing much resistance. Like,
yeah.
I mean, he also had, a fairly, not Merab level, but a fairly bottomless gas tank.
Yeah, certainly. I don't think he does anymore.
I've no doubt that, like, any physically intact version of Henry Cejudo has a bigger gas tank than, like, late career Raoni Barcelos.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is genuinely a weird one.
It is. Yeah. I mean, the thing I'm most interested in is, like, what does, and why I actually like this matchup. There are things that make it like a permutation on the test we've seen Talbot been given now twice in a row that just make it self-evidently interesting. The fact that Cejudo's a more experienced version of the Felipe Lima problem, that he's a more athletic version of the Raoni Barcelos problem, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like it because I don't think that development is done yet.
Yeah.
As I think we saw against Felipe Lima. Now, I don't know, like, that, and it also makes this a pretty good, like, safe kind of development matchup, which sounds crazy to say about, you're fighting a former champion who is still absolutely like a crazy athlete with an expert skill set in your area of weakness. But it feels relatively safe to me because I don't think Henry Cejudo is going to go out there and just, like, mop Peyton Talbot if Talbot's output falls off the way it did against Lima. I don't think Cejudo himself can really, like, exceed what Lima was able to do on the fight in terms of numbers. And so that should give Peyton Talbot a great opportunity to show that he can deal with the takedowns and also win the rounds. Particularly because, like, Felipe Lima, like, kept going for the takedowns. If Henry Cejudo finds himself feeling cowed and possibly tired at this point in his career, he might not just keep throwing himself into the things that are losing him the fight. He might actually just try to stay away from Peyton Talbot and try to walk him into big shots. And I don't know how Talbot handles that at this moment.
Yeah.
He was just so inactive on the feet against Lima.
Yeah, you got to hope that it's basically, it's one of those times when he's developing a new skill set and has yet to synthesize it into the rest of his game.
Yeah, there's nothing alarming about that being a change in that fight. But it's not a positive development in his striking. It's expected, but it's not good.
Yeah. It is also worth noting, this is Henry Cejudo's retirement fight, by all accounts.
All right. So he's going to be juiced up to the gills.
Yeah. I don't know how that interacts with Henry Cejudo's particular mentality. I don't know whether he'll come out being like, this is my last fight. I've got to make something of it. I can't go out on a loss. I need to get a win over a future star kind of thing.
He does seem like a kind of dude who cares about legacy and stuff like that. What were you going to say?
Yeah, or it could just be the standard retirement fight where people realize they kind of sort of don't want to do this all that much anymore.
Yeah, this is why I'm retiring.
Yeah. My suspicion is it's probably the second one, but again, you never know with Henry. You never know what's gonna really get his fire burning. Maybe this is it, but my suspicion is that if the fire was still burning, he wouldn't be retiring in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a mercurial fellow, though.
Yeah. Interesting fight, though.
Yeah.
Got to pick Payton, though.
Of course. Picking Payton. Yeah, I just like the matchup. I just like seeing this is a great use of Henry Cejudo.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, well, there's some other good stuff on here, but I think that's all I really care to hit for now. Hopefully, UFC 323 will furnish us with lots of great discussion material for next week's episode, which will be one of the last fight card recaps of the year.
Yep.
Because after that, we've got a very solid-looking fight night card, main evented by Brandon Royval and Manel Kape. And then no event until nearly the end of January, when in their desperation to keep Justin Gaethje, who threatened to fuck off if he wasn't given a title shot, they have given him an interim title shot against Paddy Pimblett because Ilia Topuria is busy.
Yes.
But we're going to have a long lag. Some people already put some ideas in the comments of last week's episode, but I will reiterate, as I probably will again next week, that in this gap, we're going to have an opportunity to be hitting some topics. So let us know your suggestions. If you think you have an idea that could take us a segment of the show to discuss, or better yet, if you have like a fighter or a card or an era or a style or something that you want us to get into in great depth, that you think might allow us to cover it for the better part of an episode, let us know. Because we're going to be talking about some stuff that is not current booked fight cards in the coming weeks. But anyway, UFC 323 is coming up. We'll be back to talk about that next week. And until then, find us on social media at Evil Greg Jackson. That's Phil at Boxing Bush. That's me. Both of those on Twitter.com. And check out the Heavy Hands Patreon. We had a couple bonus episodes last month in addition to the 2 episodes of Heavy Hanka, which is me and Miguel Class's sumo recap show. It was a really, really cool sumo tournament with a particularly high number of dazzling finishes. So I think you'll have fun, if you haven't seen that already, watching along with us. And there will be a little bonus content from this week's recording as well, where we talked about, oh God, it's left my brain already. We talked about Moreno, Tyra, and Jan Blachowicz, and Grant Dawson, and Chris Duncan, and et cetera, et cetera. Oh, and then Phil insisted on talking about Edson Barboza versus Jalen Turner, because the only thing he hates more than himself is everything else in the world.
Can't deny it.
So, check out the Patreon, and we'll talk to you next week. Until then, if you came here today for the finer points of face punching, you came to the right place. This has been Heavy Hands.